Okay. Greetings, ones and ones. Great Garvey Day. Today I will be reading Message to the People, the course of African philosophy. I'm Marcus Garvey. Today we're reading Lesson 18, Commercial and Industrial Transactions. Commerce and industry are the feeding props of the economic life of the state, the community, or society as a whole. On these two foundations rests the universal system of exchange with its financial factors. Every progressive people and nation indulge in some form of commerce and industry, manufacturing or agriculture industry. It is by such activities and individuals find occupation within the normal life of the state. You are either an employer or an employee, big or small. The employees are those who work for the employers. The employers are those who employ the employees and pay their salaries or wages. The employers pay themselves salaries out of their profits or dividends. So both employer and employee live of commerce and industry. Those do those who do not work in the way are either wards of the state or recipients of charity or people who live off the earnings of others which flow from those who are industrious enough to work either as an employer or an employee. Every self respecting man finds an occupation, either as an employee or an employer, according to his choice, with the ability and general fitness, he earns a livelihood. All men try to earn as much as they possibly can. To do so, they generally equip themselves for their occupation. A good laborer or worker qualifies himself for his particular work so as to demand the best reward or wages. The businessman, proprietor, or employer generally goes into the most profitable business so as to secure the largest amount of profit. The man without a business or of his own or without training to perform a particular type of job is always at a disadvantage in making a living. Great wealth is made out of commerce and industry, also the professions which depend upon commerce and industry. Commercial enterprises are of different kinds, sorry, are of different kinds as are industry enterprises. In commerce, we have the groceries business, the lumber business, the ironmonger business, the mercantile business or dry goods business, the clothing business, the tailor business, retail and wholesale business of all kinds. Industry, industrially we have the manufacturing business, the manufacturers, the particular articles of commerce, while the farming industry produces such commodities that are necessary for human consumption. The industries man must find an occupation in one or the other of those enterprises or professions if he is to be a proprietor or an employer. He must have his own wholesome establishment or retail establishment. He must have his own factories or mills, either large or small. His capital may be $1 million or $10, according to the size of the enterprise. One proprietor has a chain of grocery stores, another has a push cart with his wares on it, but both of them are proprietors. At the end of a week, one may make a profit of $10,000 on the investment, the other may make a profit of $10. This is due to the difference in size of the business. So a man who is enterprising with little capital can start a business of his own equally or simultaneously with the man who with the large capital. One farmer may be the proprietor of 10,000 acres of land, another farmer may be the proprietor of 1 acre of land, but both of them are farmers and proprietors. Often is the small proprietor who ultimately becomes a large proprietor through the success of small business venture. Most of the successful businessmen in the world started with a small amount of capital. Rockefeller started with $1, so did Carnegie. Henry Ford started with less than $50, but both became great trust magnates as in less than half a century. They open the way for enterprising men who are willing to start with a modest or small beginning and work steadily to build a business of greater magnitude. The examples of small men starting small businesses and building them up to massive concerns are common. In England, Joseph Lyons, a Jew starting with less than $10 capital, built the Great Joseph Lyons Company tea room and restaurant syndicates that control the catering trade in all of Great Britain. This was also true of Thomas Lipton, who afterwards became Sir Thomas Lipton, the great tea magnate of England. This kind of enterprising success has its counterpart in nearly every country in the world, where small men where small men have grown big by entering a business and sticking to a business until becomes a colossal success. Many Many an Italian millionaire started with a pushcart selling oranges and bananas in the streets of New York and Chicago. Many Greeks also become millionaires by starting with a small lunch counter of some side corner with capital of more than $10. Many an Assyrian peddler started peddling with a box slug, box slug um, across his shoulder containing assorted merchandise not valued at more than $5. To become a millionaire or merchant price, the proprietor of a dry goods establishment later. Proprietor of a dry goods establishment later. Many an enterprising body started out with 35 cents to buy newspapers and sell them, the morning and afternoon editions, and climbed up to be a great newspaper publisher or proprietor. The fault with the Negro in business, commercial, or industrial has been his inability to appreciate starting a given profit and climbing steadily, while other races have been willing to start from the bottom and climb up. The Negro always decides to start from the top, therefore he comes down. No success ever comes from the top. It is always from the bottom up. The Negro must learn to climb from the bottom up. He will never be an industrial or commercial factor until he has learned the principles of commercial and industrial success. These principles are as much open to him as to anybody else. Find a particular kind of business that you would like to engage yourself in because you can make a profit. You can make it profitable and start it with whatever capital you have. You can start selling newspapers with a capital of 25 cents. You can start selling oranges with a capital of $1. You can start selling stockings for ladies with a capital of $2. You can start selling ties for gentlemen with a capital of $2. Find out what the neighborhood wants most and are willing to buy. Start selling to them. If not a shop, by going to door. If your capital is larger, your opportunities become larger and easier. But no Negro needs to sit down at his doorstep and mourn his bad luck if he has 25 cents in his pocket to start a business. If you invest 25 cents weekly, wisely, at 9 o'clock in the morning, by 6 o'clock in the evening, you may have 50 cents. If you eat 10 cents for the day and carry over 40 cents to the next day, the capital from 9 a.m. to 6 o'clock on the next day may have 75 cents. Eat another 10 cents out of the 75 cents, which will leave you with a capital for the next day of 65 cents. Your 65 cents capital may bring you 90 cents. Eat 10 cents and carry over 80 cents. For the following day, and at 6 o'clock on that day, you may have $1.20. Eat 20 cents, carry over the $1.10 to the business of the next day, and at 6 o'clock on the next day, you may have $1.50. And so follow the method for 1 year, and at the end of the year, your capital in the business may be $25 and your income may be $5 on that day, out of which you provide your food, and still have a large capital to face the next day. In 5 years, your capital may be $1,000. In 10 years, your capital may be $10,000. In 50 years, you may be a millionaire. That is how Rockefeller did it. That is how Carnegie did it. And they left their impression upon the world as self made men. If the Negro is going to look at Marshall Field or Sears and Roebuck in Chicago, John Wanamaker is Philadelphia or Gordon Selfridge in London, England, and in London, England. And I say I want to work like that. The dreamer will never start because nothing starts that way. Wanamaker had to climb from the ground to the top to his skyscraper by perseverance and plodding, and so did Selfridge and Marshall Field. They all started from the ground floor, climbing up. The Negro must start from the ground floor to commerce and industry and climb up. When he can make a good handkerchief, then later he will make a gross and then a million gross with the factory going at top speed. When he can make a simple tie successfully, then he will make his gross, then hundreds of gross, then thousands of gross, and his factory will hum and buzz with activity. Businesses are necessary. Shops, stores, wholesale and retail and factories. These are the places where the majority of the people are employed outside of the farm. The Negro is to be employed and to his own employer must have his independent farms, stores, factories, and mills. But he must start them as the white man did, growing from a single room of industry into a mighty factory on the hillside of the plain. Without commerce and industry, a people perish economically. The Negro is perishing because he has no commerce system, no commerce and industry. There are tricks in every business. Never go into business until you know all the tricks thereof. Otherwise, you are bound to fail. If you like to indulge or engage yourself in a certain line of business, spend as much time as you possibly can investigating from your friends, acquaintances, or whoever you can approach who is already in the business of knowing about the business, so as to have all the information necessary about it before you start. It is the people who know of the tricks in the trade that make the profit out of the trade. If you are going to sell ripe bananas on a truck through the streets, find out how long a banana will fully ripe will last in handling so that you may gauge the time of sale of the bananas that they may not spoil on your hands. So with oranges, fish, meat, ribbons, hat, shoes, or anything that time will age, time and age will affect. If you don't know about the particulars of these things and invest in them, you will find yourself losing money instead of making it. No one goes into business just for the fun or pleasure, but for profit and results. Study all the possible means of making profit and getting good results out of the business in which you are to engage yourself. A democracy is the safest kind of government for persons of an individual initiative who desire to go into business to live under, because it gives every man a chance to do business more safely. As a fact, the capitalist of today was the labourer or worker of yesterday. Most of the capitalists of our present age were workers 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, or 5 years ago. Hence, the man who wants to go into business commercially, industrially, or agriculturally and win fortune for himself cannot and should not be a communist, because communism robs the individual of his personal initiative and ambition or the result thereof. Democracy, therefore, is the kind of government that offers to the individual the opportunity to rise from a labourer to the status of a capitalist or employer. Property. In acquiring property for commercial, industrial, or personal purposes or use, always see that you get value for the money for your money. The property market is regulated by the real estate brokers or agents and mortgaging and trust companies who take mortgages on property. These people create the rise and fall in property values to suit their own conveniences and their own profits. They will they so when they can get the public to buy at high value, they indicate in induce the public to do so. When the public will not buy enough to ensure the profit, they reduce the value of property and then encourage the buying of the same. When the buying goes, when the buying takes a gradual rise, they inflate the values again to make the public pay more for what they have started to buy again. As for Negroes, as far as Negroes are concerned, the custom of the real estate brokers and mortgaging companies has always been to sell them property at one fourth, one third, and sometimes one half, and other times 100% higher than the real value. When the Negro is ready to sell, he never gets half of what he paid. For the property, except in exceptional cases, it is always suggested that the ownership of particularly his own, his occupancy carries this depress, depresses, what's that word? Depreciation. Therefore, to be safe, when the Negro is purchasing property, he should first go to the official registry of property transfers in the community for a record of titles to find out the price paid for said property by the last purchaser so that he will know how much should be also go for the how much he should be charged, how much he is being charged for in excess of the last sale price. He should also go to the government registry where the particular property is assessed for taxation to find out the real value from the government point of view for the property. Government assessed value on property is always about two-thirds of the ordinary market commercial value. Add one third of the government assessment and you will find out the real market value of the property. Never pay in excess of the value except you can afford to stem the loss to suit your own convenience, because when you want to sell the property, that is the method others will adopt to find out the real value. Always be careful and watch your mortgage or the person you have bought the property from to whom you own balances. After you have paid off the excess value of the property and started to pay for the real value, when the mortgager or the seller of the property sells it to you in excess of the value, he is always friendly and tolerant while you are paying off the excess value, because he realizes he is the one who is benefiting from the time. But when you start to pay the real value of the property to have equity in that will make it marketable equity, he becomes nervous in the belief that you may pay off the property and own it. The more you pay off on the real value of the property, the more nervous he becomes, because he is always counting on the inability to pay for the properties so as to on the foreclose on you to sell property a second time so as to make a double profit out of the excess value. That is to say, if he sells a property originally at the excess value of $1,000, he will encourage you to pay off the $1,000 with tolerance, because all that is gross profit. But he always hoping to have the property to sell to another person at another excess value of $1,000. He can only make it when you have forfeited your regular payments on the real value to make it possible for him to foreclose. Therefore, He may trick you into being off guard to pay off your first interest and sink in funds regularly. Then, in the first lapse of unpreparedness, he serves you by foreclosing and gets the money in his hands again for the second attempt. This is the method of all the users who take mortgages and property who deal with property as a business. If you will investigate, you will find out that the majority of the Negroes in every country have lost the property in this way. Charitable institutions. Charity suggests the sympathy and goodwill of the and fortunate for the unfortunate. The poor we shall have with us always, and no one knows who shall be the poor, and so we we become kindly to the behavior and the disposition towards those who are unable to help themselves through misfortune or circumstances of any kind. The proper the properly dispensed kindness of those in need. Society decides on the establishment of institutions for charity. These may be hospitals, homes for the aged, homes for the blind, foundling institutions, asylums, etc. All well organized races have such institutions for their own and contribute to support them. The Negro must be interested in the founding and the keeping of such institutions for his own poor. In giving charity to the worthy cause, nothing is lost. In fact, it is like casting your bread upon waters to come back to you after many days. You may help to do good to a member of your race without personally knowing the person, and 10 years hence and 10 years hence some relative of that person may help some relative of yours without knowing them. It is the bread it is the bread coming back upon the waters. To give charity outside your race is probably sending it too far away, but to give it within your race is probably handling it in your own relative. In fact, charity begins at home, and your race is much nearer to you than a neighboring one. So always find time to bestow charity upon your race first. Every Negro helped from the ground to stand up is another man set on a journey of racial responsibility. When when possible, always seek to help your Negro brother. Never never allow him to fall, because as low down as he goes, he may ultimately pull you down with him. As high as you can send him, he might ultimately pull you up with him. Let us not Let us then push everybody of the race up and not down. To help a Negro boy or girl to become a useful man or woman is probably to assist in giving to the world a greater character who never would have found himself or herself but for the early help he received from you, all your charitable institutions. Try to educate the boys and girls who have no parents. Try to assist those who have no one to depend on. Never let orphans go astray or fall into the hands of other races. They will only make them servants of themselves. If you help them within the race, you may yet become the leaders of the race in some particular line of success. Before you give to others not of your race, first think how much your race depends on it and place it there. Never be unkind to your race. Never allow your members of your race to die in poverty. It is your fault if they do. Always put yourself in the position of the unfortunate fellow and ask, how would I like to be in this stead? If your feelings and conscience rebel against your rebel against his condition, then help him out of it. If you can, if you can, and and as much as you do unto him, so may others do unto you in the time of our honor or need. Whenever you find your own race or institutions worthy, support them. In any community in which you live, always seek to have your own charitable institutions. In the public funds you are used for charity, then seek to get a portion for your young group, separate and distinct from him of others, because you may not desire charity for yourself. For for the time being, why should you not support the appeal of charity for those of our own race who may need it? One may be prosperous today as his own initiative and account by misadvantage lose the natural ability of initiative to become dependent upon charity. You may lose your eyes, arms, or legs. You may lose your wealth without contributing to it personally, but purely by accident. In that case, you will become a recipient of charity without your expecting it or contributing to the cause. So charity should always be maintained for its own good, to benefit those who may be unfortunate enough to need it, and the next person to need it may be you. No one can tell you. So never frown upon a worthy cause, and never refuse to give the support if you can afford it. And there ends the reading of Marcus Garvey, Message to the People, Lesson 18. Thank you. Race first. That was a nice chapter, very informative. And again, I'm reading it and I'm like, this man just knows so much, you know. But charity definitely begins at home. I'm one of those people that, you know, I don't give to others out of the principle that I know that my people need it more. And, you know, I don't have enough funds to stretch everybody else. But I also think that where we come from in the lineage of where we are today, especially a lot of us being in diaspora, they have had a lot out of us already. So it's time for us to start building ourselves up and giving to ourselves. But also in the fact of just talking about business in general, you know, we need to be able to be in a place where we are doing for ourselves, because otherwise we're always working for them and never for ourselves. So, very good chapter. Over to someone else.
Well, that was a very good reading, I must also say.
Say that again, sorry.
So that was a very good reading of the chapter as well.
Oh, thank you.
Um, we should designate you the official reader of the UN.
Oh, no way. I think I've got a little while to go yet to become more confident, but I'll give thanks you got the confidence in me.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lot to unpack in that
Yeah.
chapter. It's full of so much information, and it invokes other thoughts of Mr. Garvey. You can tell when he wrote this in when he utilized teaching of it in 1937, it was very reflective of all the lessons that leaders in the UNIA would have to learn, and he wanted to make sure that the next generation of leadership, because he felt, at that time, kind of like I guess Yeshua or Jesus, the prophet. He felt that, which it happened to be true. And, Jesus' last 3 years, he started training some apostles. So Mr. Garvey's last, few years, he started training his apostles and happened, to feel like his time was limited. So when he started teaching them, not from theory, but from practice, having had the, largest shipping line, had to start it from nothing, unlike Du Bois and other characters who were born with a silver spoon in their mouth. He
Mm-hmm.
actually started from the bottom and worked his way up and, earned a living and tried to perfect every craft he got into. And, eventually, he surrounded himself by people who were, very knowledgeable and tried to get the best of the best to, to come to his way of thinking and his idea. And he produced the greatest mass movement for improvement to ever grace our race. And he, had so many industries. I mean, we know about the shipping line, but few know about the Black Eagle Flying Corps, the aeronautic division of the UNIA. He had hotels as well as universities. Doll factories, having millineries, make hats and all kinds of textiles, having the publishing company, having so many institutions all under one umbrella, which is, very, at that particular time in the 1920s was almost ridiculous because I remember looking at the census for the 1920 census, and I was looking at all the black folks in Harlem who were listed on the same block that Mr. Garvey was on. I mean, you had about 6 or 7 people who were just laborers. You had about another 5 or 6 people who were domestic workers, working other folks' home, probably white folks' home, taking, care of the children and all that. You had one prestigious gentleman that had a job as an elevator operator, which was, big thing back then, working fancy folks' hotel as an elevator operator. And then you had one other person, Marcus Garvey, president of a steamship corporation. I'm like, how's that for a person on the block? Everybody knows. The president of a steamship corporation right here on the same block with the laborers, it's unheard of. But the fact that he could accomplish so much in so little is extraordinary and is evidence of what he's talking about, not just conjecture or hey, you can be anything you want to be. This is the man that demonstrated it resoundingly. And even after they did everything they could to destroy his shipping line, he came back and started another shipping line. And it's just phenomenal, miraculous what he's been able to accomplish. So anyway, definitely, I love the lesson dealing with commerce and industry. That's an important, always been important in the UNIA. In fact, we have an Office of Finance and Industry ministry, in the UNIA for that very purpose. But understanding how industry works is something. If we were more unified as a race, wouldn't be so much an obstacle. But when you are everybody's for themselves. I came in this world by myself. I'm gonna leave out by myself. That kind of attitude that I don't need nobody, and I got mine. Fool, you got to get yours, and you can't build industry like that. One person, one selfish. I'm just trying to get rich and do me and all that kind of mentality. You got to think as a group. You got to think collectively. Once I get in this field, in this craft, and started doing better and better, I'm gonna try to bring a few more people on, and we're gonna spread across town and start these grocery stores, this food stand, and we're gonna do whatever, and then we're gonna start growing the food. Then we're gonna start opening up some stores, and then we're gonna start opening up some wholesale stores, and then we're gonna start doing this and that until we take over and put a lock on the whole market. We're gonna take over the industry all over the world. That's our vision to really run a whole industry until nobody else can know about the industry or how to operate the industry because we all got the experts. Same thing like even the Asian people. They started getting into hair care because they seen black folks will sell their soul to these Asian folks. They can make save $1 off of it. So they started doing the nails and the hair care, and then when a new black company would start a new hair care product, they'd buy them out, take them over. They'd take over all the hair care, and so that it's very, very, very few places where you can go that have black made hair care products that are owned actually, the store itself by a black, professional in the industry. It used to be all over the place. That was used to be one market that we had a lock on, but now all of a sudden, we don't have locks on market. We except the church maybe, the black church and maybe some barbershops, but other than that, there's really no safe place for black economics because we're not thinking on in that industrial level. Now, other ethnicities sometimes, like in America, the Ethiopian community, for example, or the Nigerian community, they came here typically with a business plan, um, with a merchant mentality, and they came to get into a particular industry or profession, whether it be medical, whether it be hospitality, etc. And they say, okay, well, we're gonna own a parking lot, and we're gonna start charging this and that and the other. And once we understand the hustle well enough, we're gonna bring in cousins and uncles and everybody else over and put them in charge of this parking lot and that parking lot. Or we're gonna get into the hotel industry and we're gonna take this over and take that over. We're gonna start this restaurant. Then you start one over here and he start one over there until we can just put a lock on, on the market on all these things. Then we can buy in bulk, save all of us some money, and we can get stuff from back home and do this and do that. But that's how you think. While they always say we playing checkers while they playing chess. We need to start playing some chess and thinking on a higher level, industrially. It kind of reminds me too of this film I saw years ago, kind of related but unrelated. But I think it was called the International or something like that. But it was they were talking about the warlords in Africa, and it was supposed to be like a meeting with Charles Taylor in Liberia with was whoever was the head of the International Monetary Fund, and Charles Taylor came to the International Monetary Fund and said, "Look, my people are fighting for revolutionary causes. We want to improve the government, and we need some money to help fight the cause. We're running out of money." And he thought he was going to have a hard time with the IMF president. IMF president said, "How much you need?" He said, 50 million. Yeah, so can I give you 150 million? And he said, "What? For really?" He's like, yeah. He said, "What do you want? Like diamond concessions, or you want some of the oil? I mean, rubber? What's going on?" He said, "Nah, we don't need any of that." He said, "Hold up, you just going to just give me the money like that? No strings? He said, "Nah, we don't need anything." So then, the guy was about to walk away, and Charles Taylor grabbed him by the arm and said, "Hey, come on, tell me what's going on? Why would you give me money like that?" And he said, "Look, you're going to go over there and you're going to destroy your country, probably flatten it, make it look like the moon. By the time you finish destroying the bridges, the homes, killing everything and everybody off, you're all going to need to come to us to rebuild. And we're going to own you anyway, because you're going to have to get billions and trillions of dollars in loans. So we don't need anything. We already own your country. You just don't know it." And but to think on that level, like, man, he just gave me a box of matches to burn my own house down, essentially. And I'm thinking that I'm getting over something. I'm trying to give him something in exchange, but he's way ahead of me in thinking. So in the same way, we sometimes are so far behind, it's just ridiculous. And we think because I got a little business and it's starting to make some money, I ain't got to worry about nobody else and nothing else. And that ain't my problem. You ain't my problem. The homeless people ain't my problem. And yeah, those are your clients. Those are your customers. And so you're not making any money. If they don't have that job, they don't do helping contribute to the economy. White folks ain't gonna help with you with your your business, patronizing you. You can't. I can't set up a shop in no Chinatown or no Asian community nowhere around this area and expect to have one of them even look at my business, more or less patronize it. So if I don't help my own people out to become um, able to contribute and have some money in their pocket and do something, then we don't have an economy. So we have to look out for one another. That's one thing I did like about the charitable, including the charitable contributions alongside the commerce and industry, because they do go hand in hand. As Mr. Garvey once had this powerful speech he did back in, I think it was January 25. Um, it was 25 or 24. Let me see. I had to yeah, it was 25, which is significant because that was not only 100 years ago, but it was right, after the purchase of the Black Star, not Black Star, the Black Cross Navigation and Trading Company's, a flagship, which was the SS Booker T, initially SS Guethels, but it was a huge monster ship that could easily go to Africa. And so, it was the biggest, baddest ship we had yet, under the direction of Henrietta Benton Davis at the time. But anyway, in the industry, he was killing it. We just about to get Liberty University. All these things are going on. And so he wrote this piece called "The Silent Murder That Eliminates," and talked about how nations sometimes, like Rome, for example, they didn't have to go into an area that they wanted to conquer. and kill everybody off and risk some of their soldiers getting killed in the process. If they knew they had a big enough army, they can they can terrify the other army. They just surround the city, cut the water supply off, stop the food and business and trade from going around back and forth. They slowly let the people starve to death until they were too weak to fight, and then they would come out with a white flag and just surrender, and they didn't have to lose near soldier. But this is how they laid seeds of a community or neighborhood economically and strangled them to death. And so, us not having control of our own resources in the industry and being able to have that food security and some basic control are putting ourselves in a position to starve to death as well. And so there's some political as well as financial benefits to us having control over our own industry as well. But I'm a pause, come for a land and hear your thoughts, Sister Nyasha.
No, just it's very informative, and yeah. I just, the thing that came to mind was that I was talking about this recently, Black Wall Street, and every time, well, a lot of, especially in that time, we had our own pretty much everything, and they just come and destroy it. So it's like we want to get ahead. A lot of us do have business ideas, and I think we are in a different time, so things are not able to be as tarnished the way that they were before. But it's that mentality of, we do something and they want to try and pull us down. So how do we also, how are we able to flourish and have our own and, work together if other communities are trying to pull us down? And now we're in a place where the mindset is even more far removed than back in the time when Marcus Garvey walked this earth, where we've so integrated and we've forgotten who we are and where we've come from and what we're supposed to be doing, and that things like racism is very much alive. It just looks different. So it's like, how do we counter that along with what this mighty man set out for us to do, and gave us a blueprint to do so, when we're just being teared down all the time. So that's the only thing that really kind of concerns me in how we can move forward in this time.
Oh yeah, yeah, true. And that's one reason I call Mr. Garvey the standard bearer of success while under duress, who was blessed to do more with less. And we demonstrated a dignity even within our poverty back then that we don't so much today, because we felt that we could do certain things. We understood our capacity. Like this is Dr. Khalid Muhammad's son. I remember read a book he wrote called Millionaire, and he described when he was young how he developed a business mentality long before dad passed and left them a boatload of money to invest. When he was a young man and he wasn't doing so well financially and wanted money, he noticed that him and some of his friends could pick up rocks that were smooth stones by the creek, and they put food coloring on them that they had in the house and made them look pretty, almost like little smooth Easter eggs. So they went around to the business district and sold them to businessmen as paperweights, and told them it's something decorative you can use in your office. And I guess some people felt sorry for him, but wound up purchasing these rocks they got off the ground for free. And once he started realizing, if he markets something well, there's some benefits to it. And then he started, when he would go to the pancake house or wherever he'd go to get some breakfast, he would mix different syrups up together. A little bit of strawberry syrup with some grape syrup and a little bit of, whatever. And he noticed they had a combination, he special combination he was putting together was pretty tasty. And a lot of people liked it and tried to imitate him. So he started getting, some bottles of syrup and mixing them up together and producing his own brand of syrup, so to speak, and started selling those, and people started buying them because they thought it was good. But that's how he started developing the mindset of understanding how to package and market and sell things. And he became somewhat successful with that. Still is, as far as I understand. But it starts with that, with understanding the basics about a business, to understand, as Mr. Garvey said, another chapter You can have anything you want in this world if you practice rigid thrift. If you start with a mentality not to make $1 trillion a day, we always, as he mentioned in the book, want to start building a building from the second floor up, but you got to start from the bottom. You can't, start in midair. You got to start where you are. And so once we start with whatever we have and learn to take that $50, that $100, and by the end of the day make it profitable. Hopefully soon we'll find a way to make $200-300 a day profitable, then 400-500, and then we'll develop a understanding of what it takes to do this, that, and the other. But you can't start at the top and work your way sideways. You got to start wherever you are. And so sometimes back in New York back in the day, there was the UNIA when the Great Depression came through. There was a group called the Push Cart Brigade that Brother Arthur Reed, one of the former business manager of the Barry and Ross Dog Company, the black dog company that the UNIA owned. He started. He was one of the orchestrators of the first Buy Black movement, along with Sufi Ahmed and Reverend Adam Clayton Powell and Ira Kemp. But anyway, he had started the Pushcart Brigade when he noticed that only the big department stores were making money and the small people who couldn't afford to compete. They found a way to marginalize the effect of the department store by taking the product on a push cart and giving it direct or bringing it directly into the neighborhood where people are. So yeah, you might go to the grocery store to get eggs and bread, but if I got it right here now in front of you, why not just buy it from me? If I got toilet paper you need or whatever product you use, if I'm bringing it to your door, if I'm right in front of you, why waste your gas money or your time going outside? I got it right here. So they found a way to equalize some of the strength of the bigger industries by having a marketing approach that was more successful. So but there's always ways we can make money, and because you are a businessman, you're going to make more profit than being an employer of a businessman. So the idea of thinking industrially, even if you still work for someone as the I remember when I was taking economics years ago, they gave us an example of if you were offered a job making $120,000 a year, and you also had the capacity to start your own business and make 80,000 a year, what would you do? And eventually, basically we came to the answer that opportunity cost would explain that you would work for that 120, but and then you'd find someone who you could hire for 50,000 to do the job of your that you can create for 80,000. So you can still get 30,000 profit off of that, along with the 120 or something along that line. So, but understanding opportunity cost and what you can do to maximize income until you can get enough income to generate more income is part of being a realistic business person. So he, Mr. Garvey gave some examples of selling oranges and flowers, and this is what the UNIA originally did back in 1914 in Jamaica. These were the common sense economic plans that we couldn't start with the big, huge fundraisers and pack Madison Square Garden back then. So you still can have your vision of eventually doing that, but again, it has to start with wherever you are. And so yeah, we made it happen. As one of the Garvey guys used to say, "Man, good at making excuses, is seldom good for anything else." So we didn't make excuses; we made money and made it happen. And once you start generating that, it gives you a lot more room to generate more money. So yeah, I like the common sense approach, but also I think it was a quote that Mr. Garvey made in that chapter dealing with find a particular kind of business that you would like to engage yourself in because you can make it profitable. Simple statement, but sometimes I notice, and this is another Dr. Khalid Muhammad story. When I was in Philadelphia years ago, probably back in around '95, um, I went to see Dr. Khalid Muhammad speak, and nice turnout. I mean, it had maybe 300 to 400 people in this big church that he had the event in. and everybody was talking positive, constructive, and one gentleman who had been trying to do a food co-op or something jumped up with a brilliant idea and said, "Hey, y'all, why don't we got enough people here right now? Why don't we start a grocery store, a black-owned grocery store right here in this neighborhood where we all not too far away from? We can patronize it. We got enough money to purchase the building." And everybody was so excited. And then Dr. Khalid Muhammad kind of slowed their roll a little bit with the sobering question. Hold up now. Are we talking about a real grocery store or one of those African Center grocery stores? And that's when everybody faced start freezing. Like, what do you mean? I mean, what's wrong with African Center store? He said, because look, if I go into business, I'm going into business to make profit. So he said, now if we talking about a grocery store, it has no cheese, it has no milk, has no sugar, has no meat, has nothing but triple osmosis water and some oils and incense. And I ain't into that kind of grocery store. All the other folks will compete and take everybody else in the neighborhood's business. I want a store that sells whatever we need to sell. Sell that pork right next to them cigarettes and everything else. But then if you want your vegan option next to it, then I'm with that. But don't come in there imposing um, you know, your thoughts and ideas on what people should and shouldn't have, and denying them opportunities to get stuff that they're gonna get elsewhere. That's not a good business model. So so people started thinking about that. Are we really into this for the profit, or are we into it to appease our conscience that we were able to come together and do something, even though it ain't making any money? But going into business for the idea of competing with other businesses and making money is something that you really gotta have your mind into understanding what a business is and how it operates, and really make the products that need to be made, or sell the products that need to be sold, and stop being a little too goody two shoes about everything. But sometimes that kills us. In the process of operating a business that is designed to make profit and to sell to sell to white folks as well as to black folks, sell to Asian and
Yeah.
anybody else. If you open a restaurant, make money off of it. And when you get that profit, then you can put that toward a good cause and or whatever. But if they want it, sell it. And I don't mean sell drugs, but there's
Yeah.
some limit. But you at least want to compete and not get everybody say, man, I ain't going to that. I'm trying to get me a ham sandwich, and you're all busy trying to, force that tofu down my damn throat. So, um, just have, some kind of competitive nature if you really want to succeed in the business, or you're going to be selling that business by the end of the week. So anyway, but that's a simple concept that sometimes we overlook.
Yeah, and even the drug dealer, not that we are enforcing the drug dealer, is a businessman. They're out there, they're making money, they're hustling and what have you. If they could think about a way they can turn that into something positive, that can benefit themselves and their community in a positive way, but they've got the makings of a business person. Technically, they are. But, it's just like, what Marcus Garvey was saying in terms of it slowly, slowly wins the race. We have to start at the bottom and work our way up. The problem with our mentality is that we all want it now. And I understand we want it now. We want to just be profitable and, have whatever is that we want, but it has to start somewhere. And it doesn't matter what age you are either, just start something, and help your community. Or if you can't start something, if you've got any loose change, give it to a charity that's going to benefit your community, and in that way it all comes back round into one, doesn't it, like you were saying. So yeah, there's just many different ways, but yeah, we have to start somewhere. You start with what you've got, don't give up, and seek guidance. Like you said, seek guidance in that profession that you want to get into, and make it work. If it takes you 5 years to get it going, then it takes you 5 years, but at least you're going. So there is that aspect as well, moving forward.
Yeah, that's true. And well, he did make great examples of some of the wealthiest people in the world starting with
Mm,
$1.
mm.
That's real.
Less than even.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Even less than $1.
Mm.
Tyler Perry, another example. He was living on the street, homeless. He had an idea for a play, and people probably saw him, sleeping on a bench or somewhere, and in his car laughing at him. Man, you can't even afford to do this. How you gonna stage a play and all that? Man, you crazy. And he's pushed the right idea to the right people who could initiate it. And once it was successful, shoot, man, he's so
Yeah.
rich is
He's
ridiculous.
got now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, rich is God. But
Eh,
it always starts with that idea. Even the same thing like what's his name? The I used to be an investor in tech stocks back in the day when Microsoft and all these folks were coming on board. But I remember Microsoft, Bill Gates, really, he dropped out of school. He was uh, fixing computers in his parents' garage, and he noticed that a new software came out from Xerox. What they had it called a graphic user interface. They finally, instead of all those old go-to commands, you had to type everything in order to make something compute in the old computers. That they found a way for you to move a mouse and touch a picture, and the picture does the command underneath the screen. That you don't have to see that empty black screen with the little green letters, and all that stuff. So anyway, he said, "Man, that's a brilliant idea." And Xerox was selling it for like $500 in order to operate, but he knew it only took, once you had the software, you can do your own thing, and really don't cost but about 10 cents to get the little floppy disk to load it onto your computer. So he's like, why are they charging all that money for
I
something so
remember.
simple? So
Mm.
he basically replicated it and put his own version of software out there and was giving it away for free. And once people started saying, "Oh, really? This one is a lot easier to operate and it's free, and we got comfortable using all these Microsoft products," and the way he did it, and, he became overnight sensation, giving away what they were trying to sell, at an enormous price. And then after that, he started improving it a little bit and came out with Windows 92 or whatever that was, and then eventually 95, and sold that for a little bit of money, and kept selling it for more and more and more, and wound up taking over the whole industry. The only reason Apple exists right now is because Bill Gates realized that he was cornered the market so much that he was going to run into antitrust laws because he had a complete monopoly of the computer industry. So he decided to finance his own competitor, and infuse a lot of money into Apple and help them promote their products, so that every time his competition makes money, he's making money off of them. At the same time, while he's
Smart.
making money, he's making money. But this is how, again, industrial minds think. The ones that are big in the game and understand the laws and loopholes and how everything works. Um, Takes us time to get to that level, but if we work collectively and work globally, nothing can stop us. We are the source of all the world's wealth and material. All the computer chips that Bill Gates used has to come from out of Africa. That's why he's in Africa.
Mm.
Everything that all the cell phone companies and all the products, the oil, the rubber, cobalt, bauxite, all that stuff is and, the what do you call it, solar batteries and all these different things, all that the pitted lights, whatever they call it, all this stuff come from out of Africa. So that once we are able to take those raw materials and make finished goods, we control the whole world economy. Just that simple. They
Mm.
want it, they have to get it from us. No more giving you raw materials to make trillions off of it and send it back to us. Same product we send to you and making us pay
Mm.
5,000 times more for the
Mm.
product. And I said, nah, we making it ourselves. If you want a cell phone, you get it from Africa, or else you don't get no cell phone. So you go back to your CB radio or something. But we would really control things if we were really strong enough, and could see it far enough ahead. But unfortunately, we haven't been thinking on that level. But
It's
two, I
not
wanted to
more.
think,
Yeah.
when you were talking about charity, it reminded me of, in DC there was a huge division. Even though the population back in the 20s of the uh, Black Washington was only 22,000 people in Black Washington, but there were, or in Washington D.C. But out of the 22,000 people, there was over 1,000 in the UNIA. And one of the members of the UNIA was a law professor at Howard University named William Henry Harrison Hart. He was he used to write the Negro World sometimes, but he had he was quite successful. He used to work for a wealthy senator, and the senator gave him some land. Then he bought some land, and he had 600 acres of land. Then he decided to when he was looking at a court case dealing with the um, well, I guess you could say like the foundling, as Mr. Garvey was talking about, or the orphanages, the DC orphanage. He noticed they were spending it was a lot of taxpayer dollars going to the orphanage, but they had inferior treatment and quality from what he could offer. So he made a bold statement, at a press conference that he could give them twice as many amenities and can treat the orphans far better and develop and cultivate their skill sets and all that more with less pay. With half as much is what the government was giving the orphanage. So they figured they'd give him a shot. So they gave Professor Hart some money, and he took a group of orphans, brought them to his land, and he gave them some tents and said, okay, well, if you want a place to stay in, some nice quarters, you're gonna have to build it. Because in this world, it's no free lunch. You don't get anything for free. You got to work for it. So they built their own quarters. Found a way, to put everything together. Nice, little barracks they put together, and then they could stay inside. Then they started farming. He said, "You want to eat? You eat what you grow and cultivate and produce." So he told them animal husbandry. He told them how to grow food and do everything. And then, when they had some arguments going on, he said, "Okay, well, you need to learn how to manage yourself and how to operate on the land. How to be good citizens. So I'm gonna teach you all a little bit about law and about how to operate. You're gonna be in charge of this. You'll be responsible for that. We're gonna set up protocols and operating procedures, and I'm gonna teach you all how to cultivate this." He called it the Hart Farm School and Junior Republic for Dependent Children. And man, this was a bad institution. But these are like examples of things. Tuskegee is another example. But there are ways that we can develop charitable institutions as well as charitable giving. Because sometimes, we feel a little hesitant to give to someone, anticipating that they're going to use it on drugs, and we're, feel like we're enabling people if they take the money and then, go hurt themselves or do something crazy. So we don't want to give, but at the same time, you don't want to deny them either because they may sincerely need that, $2-3 you got in your pocket. So it's better if we can build institutions that serve their needs and let them develop, cultivate in them some Garveyism. That's a lot of times when we do some traveling and speaking, and people want us to, particularly in some places in the countries that are more quote unquote underdeveloped, or countries that are not as wealthy. Folks want us to bring a whole bunch of money, and I'm like, whoa, 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 that we not built like that. I know what Mr. Garvey was doing in his day, but right now, yeah, we can do no more for you than you willing to do for yourself.
Mm.
So if you start with that right attitude and start, pooling the resources you have to produce what you need, along the way, as you demonstrate some ability to be responsible and take care of certain things. Yeah, if some over here can pool some resources and give you a little assistance, yeah, we can. We will. But don't come in with a handout and hand in hand, thinking we all just rich on this end and we just holding back because we just want to be spoiled. Ain't that sweet. But yeah, people really willing to improve their lives. We certainly should be available to assist them in whatever way. So
I wanted
charity is important.
I wanted to say, charity is definitely important. And there's a mindset of each one teach one as well. And it's the same kind of thing which Marcus Garvey actually said in the book. When we take one when we're going up, we take one with us. We won't make sure we take the right people up with us because otherwise they'll bring us down. But I want to go back to something you said earlier, which also ties into what you're saying in terms of mindset. Because if Tyler Perry, for example, listen to the person and said, oh, you're crazy because you sleep in your car and you haven't got anything about you. But he's got this idea and he listened to that. Where would he be now? So it's also working on, and this is the one thing that wasn't in this chapter about the mindset, because people will always have doubt in you. And that doubt can create doubt in yourself. And if you have doubt in yourself, then your business is doomed from the start, because you're not going to start it. It's always going to be an idea, So like, how do we, in this society where people don't have the faith either in themselves or in the system or their community to get things going, so that we can create the institutions that are there to keep us, in a place. How do we go about that? Because Brother Minister is always saying that our people are sickly. We just cannot keep ourselves together and do the right thing to keep going. So how do we combat that, especially in this time where, there's a lot more integration than there was 100 years ago? So what's the remedy to getting enough, because you're never going to be able to get everybody, but enough of our people to start thinking for themselves and not looking at the hands of other? What's the remedy for that to go forward? Because otherwise we're always going to be in this same place, looking for other to do for us and not doing for ourselves, and not even realizing how mighty we are. I heard something yesterday which shocked me, actually, that the main other in this world, and they're not main, are only 7%. So if our community is mainly the most, how can we still be in this position where they are the minority of the minority, or not even 10% of the minority? Imagine if we all woke up and said, you know what, we're going to take back our stuff and we're going to do this but how do we even get there to know that we are mighty and that we're the best, and we have all the resources that we need for ourselves? How do we cultivate that so that we know who we are and can do better in this world, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a question Malcolm used to ask it back in the day too, as an ideological son raised in the Garvey movement, an ideological son of Mr. Garvey. He used to always ask people that question: how is it that so few white people rule so many black people?
Mm.
And that's be the thing that we would want to know. And is there are a lot of explanations for how we got here, understanding history. Why we maintain that is also, there's some different explanations in our inability to unify. There's a lack of trust. There's a lack of understanding of, how to operate within a system, and, how to, eventually build our own systems and become powerful. But one thing for certain is, a friend of mine used to always say about children that they never listen to what you say, but they seldom do other than what they see. So they'll typically do as they see in the house, and if you behave a certain way, um, that will normally be something that will influence them to also, as they age, to become more like you, because that's their idea of what a parent is or whatever. Sometimes people, when they see success, they tend to want to imitate the success. And when they realize, like, if we start coming together and producing things, and they say, man, it hasn't been a store, a black owned store in this block in years. Finally, these brothers and sisters with these African clothes and hairdos come in the community, and now they own this one, they own that shop. I hear they about to buy the gas station on the corner. They starting to offer programs in the community like I haven't seen in years. They're like, man, how do I get with these? How can we do something like this? And other cities gonna be like, wow, we need that too, but we need to follow their plan because something they doing is right. And when you begin to see success, typically people want to imitate it, follow it. But that's why it's interesting. I see this image of Africa that someone had used a magic marker to draw a picture of Africa on a map and demarcate the different nations with a magic marker. And then they put, I think it was two ants in the middle of one of the nations. And ants have a certain sense when they follow each other. so that if you got ants going around walking a certain direction, they have to smell or sense the other ant in front of them, and anything can throw their smell off if they smell like the ink from the magic marker or whatever. So basically, if you had a sheet of paper and there's two ants on it, and you separate them with a line in between it, and they can't smell the other one, they're just going to go around in circles looking for the other one and go nowhere. And so someone drew the map of Africa, put a couple ants in one part of Africa, and then when they got separated by space and drew the line, they got trapped in the little country where they were when they couldn't help one another or connect with one another. They were just totally disconnected, for a long period of time, if not permanently. So sometimes we act like these ants that we get so tribalized and so narrow-minded that we don't see the big picture. And only once, again, the masses started coming together with around an idea and seeing that idea materialize, and the power of success to show that, hey, they doing all right, and they doing all right over there. What are they doing? How they do it? They doing this thing called Garveyism. What's Garveyism? Give me some of those books. I want to read that. Maybe we can try it here. And that's normally how things start to grow and succeed. So I mean, I think us, the few faithful, setting the example of what we can accomplish together is all you need to really, and not be too isolating. Whereas, there are some religio nationalist communities, etc., that may have some degree of success, but if you're not of that religion, if you're not of, this
Mm.
cultural persuasion or whatever, then people would say, "Oh, well, that's them. We're not like them. They're not part of our circle." But Mr. Garvey, being a universal nationalist for all people of African descent, he had the doors open so that as long as you look like us, come on in, and let's work together. Our problem is racism. So
Yeah.
you're a member of the race. You're welcome to come and um, circumvent racism by us practicing race first. So it was a very simple program for a bunch of complicated people. And I think that same, I'm confident that same simple program will resonate today. And it kind of is an off subject. Yeah, I know on a lot of people's mind right now is the Biden presidential pardon and I don't know if you all know or not, but the film Mosiah, the short film that I was a consultant on the film, is now available on Amazon, which is the same people who were going to do a movie, Jeff Bezos, on Agent 800, which is interesting enough. But the presidential pardon shows that Garveyism still has some, grabs the attention of the world, because there was a blogger who had like 30,000 followers on his page or wherever, and once he posted about Marcus Garvey and the successful political pressure that was put on him to force the president of the United States to concede his innocence and offer a full unconditional pardon pursuant to the petition that laid out in 40 pages how he was innocent and how politically motivated and all that stuff the trial was. So um, the guy went from 30,000 likes or 30,000 followers to 1 million followers in one day. Just
Wow.
promoting the idea of Mr. Garvey getting some due justice. So that name it still resonates. People always ask about us doing more, and I'm like, yeah, well, we're working toward it. But let me ask you this question: so when the last time you celebrated uh, a Frederick Douglass Day? Okay. When the last time you celebrated W.E.B. Du Bois Day? Do you even know when his birthday is? Nope. But you know when Marcus Garvey birthday is. You've celebrated some Garvey Day. You've seen some Garvey Day fair. You see that red, black, and green everywhere. A lot of people over the years have been forgotten and brushed to the side. But Mr. Garvey and Garveyism, through the Rasta, through the Moorish Science, through the Nation of Islam, and certainly through the UNIA and other institutions, Republic New Africa, organizations, they can't forget him. His books are still selling all over the place. His topic, of his life and legacy, the miraculous accomplishments, are still resonating with people all over the world. So he's still being recognized by different world governments. Soon he may be in the Hall of Heroes. Is a bust in the African Union. So the name of the Mr. Garvey is going to live on to be a beacon of light, as well as the philosophy, program, and vision that he shared with us. So that's
Has
going to
to.
always endear people toward the program and the plan. So that's part of the approach that we're going to have to take to bring them around, is teach them some true unadulterated Garveyism. And if we ever, people used to say that if there's a cliche that insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
Mm,
But the flip side of that is it's sane, therefore, to do the same thing and expect the same result. And so, if we want what we had to do what we did. And the blueprint is laid out. The baddest blueprint for Black Power ever designed and constructed by Mr. Garvey is still available for use. As long as we don't come in with that arrogance of thinking we got a better mousetrap and we know more than he did, and yet we've never been able to produce anything close to what he produced. Come in with some degree of modesty and look at the plan and follow it. And yeah, I'm confident we'll accomplish everything we will now as we did then. Um, and we even have the hindsight now from seeing
mm.
how the enemies might attack us in the same way, or possibly some different ways. But yeah, we'll be ready for it. Because we're building a generation of strong African nationalists who steeped in the rationalism of nationalism and not going to abandon the cause because of one political leader or one figurehead is taken off of the scene. Mr. Garvey's philosophy is like a dandelion. The more you try to break it apart and blow it away, and you're actually spreading it. It still take roots everywhere else. And so trying to character assassinate him once he already taught the word was like shutting the barn door after the horseman left the stable. It's too late. It's already out there flourishing, and just a matter of time before we take strong root and spread this thing like wildfire fire throughout the world.
Facts. Facts. So somebody just put that in the comments as well. But
Mm,
definitely, definitely, agree with everything you said. And there's a point that I want to make based on something you said. But I want to read a couple of the comments in the group first because it also ties into what you said. Sister Kushti has written that we don't see it as our own to take back. So, going back to the point of, taking back our world, taking back our industry, taking back what we had, our culture, what they stripped from us. So we're lost to the integration works so well to think of ownership is like a curse word. And it's true, but it's like it's the indoctrination of the mind, isn't it? They stripped us of our own thinking and who we are, and we have forgotten where we've come from. She also added we should be using the technology easier to link with those of us with like minds than help each other. And I think that's a really good point because, we're so much far ahead than, where they was back in the 40s. And they can do back in the 20s and 30s, 40s, if they can do those things like that and be successful, and we have more ways of reaching the world easier, then we should be able to lean on those technologies and resources to get us ahead. But I just was also thinking, imagine, if 'cause I did the calculation, and 7% of what 7-8 billion in the world is 560 million. So imagine if 1 billion of us decided that we were going to take back and fight, there'd still be how much X amount of millions for us to keep going if one of those people to every white person perished, or they put us in jail because there isn't enough prisons, or there's not enough people in the world to lynch us or kill us. So we must can succeed if we have the mindset that we can do for self and that we are mighty and can come together. So just based on what you were saying earlier, but using the blueprint of Marcus Garvey, which is there, we're still talking about it today, 100 years on. We can do this work, but we'll have to figure out a plan to make it work so that we can stop sleeping and know how mighty we really are, you know. So yeah, and everything is possible. Um, we just have to find a way to make it happen because we can't give up. Don't matter how tough things get, we cannot give up because like Marcus Garvey said, we either give up or die. It's give up or perish. And sometimes the going gets tough, it does, but we cannot say that we're sick people. We cannot say that we're going to be following the word of Marcus Garvey and Garveyism is the only way if we're going to give up on one another. It's never going to go anywhere. It's always going to be the same cycle of people starting, getting tired, or perishing and going in, and it's like it's like insanity trying to do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We have to do different things. We have to stay in the race. There are going to be times where it's going to be joyous, but there's also going to be times where it's going to be tough. It is tough. We're already up against it, but we have to stick together, enable for it to work. Otherwise, we might as well just stop right now and take the L that Marcus Garvey's word has come to an end, and we would, and I'm sure everybody on this call is saying, no, that's not an option. So if it's not an option, then we need to come together and keep it going. Because, yeah, we're going to have challenges, but through the challenges and adversity comes brightness and new opportunity and great days for a future, a brighter future ahead for the generations coming up. The world is already mad. So we have to do something to help level it out for the youngsters that are coming up. We have to.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Miss Garvey, speaking to your
I'll be
point about the
joining.
numbers, the sheer use of numbers, and that's what the reason that even in America right now, the fear of a black nation is real, and definitely the fear of a black planet. That's the illusion of race that these folks started. It's going to come back to bite them if they don't produce numbers, which they're not producing. And so the um, the world population is still browning and browning and browning, and they're losing their illusion of superiority and power, because of their pale complexion. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, we're in a position to, if we mobilize quickly and effectively, do some things. But Marcus Garvey used to once said that, how in the name of God, with history before us, do we expect to redeem Africa without preparing ourselves, some of us, to die? And yeah, the realization that we may have to become, in order to defend our freedoms and our rights and ourselves, and have any kind of lasting future for our children, we may have to prepare ourselves to you know uh, do more than we have thus far, and even at the point of risking our lives. Life ain't worth living if you don't enjoy the what they call over here the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So we need to have uh, that mindset also. To be prepared, not to be so scared of death, because you're gonna die anyway. The question is, you're gonna live with some dignity and some self-respect.
Yes.
You're gonna tolerate, this uh, group of people exploiting you for the rest of your lives. And Mr. Garvey also said once that the whole world is run on bluff. The reason a bully can keep you at bay, that one monkey in the room with
Mm,
a six-shooter gun, keep 100 people at bay because nobody want to be the first to get shot. But somebody's gonna have to, like I say, take it, and be that sacrificial lamb in order for the others to, surround and jump them and take that gun out their hand. But yeah, somebody's gonna get shot. Bob Marley says, "Some winning, some losing, some crying, some dying. We don't need no more trouble." But yeah, it's gonna be a little bit of everything is involved. But some people are gonna interpret that as, um, why did you, put us up here to suffer and sacrifice and da, da, da. But they don't see the big picture coming ahead. But we have to, because that's again necessary. Same thing happened with the Europeans. But another thing too is that sometimes the Europeans in their greed will become their own worst enemy. Baba Oduno, one of my elders, used to always say, sometimes the best thing you can do is keep on working, and sit back and observe the manifestation of all defects. Just give them time, just like they did when they stole Africa, and occupied it and thought they were on top of the world forever. Eventually, Germany and Belgium started getting in the war over how much territory one should have in Africa, and that war started with the eruption of World War One. And then they came back and fought again, other nations over what spoils in Africa they wanted to take, which ended in World War II with millions and millions of them dying from Spanish flu and getting killed on the battlefield, etc.
Mm.
Which was enough that they had no more army left to regulate Africa, and eventually some African nations fought and got their independence. Whereas before, had it not been a world war, they might have had enough military might and power to send all their dreadnoughts and nuclear bombs and everything else to go regulate Africa, but uh, they killed themselves trying to, fight over us. So sometimes, like even now with this um, Donald Trump situation going on, while times of peace prepare for war, they say. So while he's preoccupied with the running the Latinos out of the country and doing all this crazy stuff, trying to take over Panama Canal and want to go to war with Denmark to steal Greenland or wherever, he was talking about. He got a bunch of crazy ideas and plans. That's what we need to be organizing and getting our stuff together, while others trying to foolishly take over the world that they're not going to be able to run with a small minority and at the same time insult everybody. We have our stuff together. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about having a strong Africa. If Africa's strong, then, instead of a ghetto or some poor neighborhood in a European majority country, we'll actually flip the script and we'll become the garrisons for that African nation. We'll become an outpost for that African nation, so that if they want to fool with us on the continent, we can fool with them in their neighborhood, right in their own backyard. So the whole dynamic changed. We flip the script on world power if we just organize ourselves correctly, just as Asians are doing, Chinese people. In fact, there was a
Mm.
guy named Dr. Brimi Oligari who did the 100-year plan for China. I remember about 20 years ago meeting and talking to him, and after working for years studying the problems and everything that was going on in China, he came up with a plan to make them the most powerful nation in the world in 100 years. This is an African guy, and
Mm.
he decided, after doing that, then why don't he do it for the continent? And so, he came, he showed me some of his ideas and how to set up, toll roads, raise enough money to get the satellites, and how to, get the solar farms in the Sahara, all kinds of things that would generate electricity without to have brownouts, and develop, certain, technical centers and educational centers that can really prepare us to move into a technologically advanced age faster and better. In fact, he's always make the argument that after traveling to 30 plus nations in Africa, that he found that there wasn't one nation in all of Africa that produced the door hinges on a door that allow it to open and shut. And he said, you want to make some money, you want to go into business, make door hinges for 1 billion people, see what kind of profit you make. And I mean, little things like that could change dynamics. I always thought about going over there because I'm a basketball kind of fan in the U.S. And trying to get some folks to start some basketball leagues over there in Africa. Different things that could generate some funds, and who knows, the organization could benefit. Over here is a multi-trillion-dollar market, entertainment industry, but all kinds of little things that can be done to generate some money and allow that money to go toward strong nationalistic causes. But even over here with the Chinatowns, the Chinatowns are never considered a racist construct. It's a cultural thing. Yet when we start talking about Africa Town, now it's political because they fear us and our numbers. But when they set up a Chinatown, they normally have a wholesale market where products coming in from China in mass. Everything from remote controls and vases and greeting cards, T-shirts, to Chinese, rice food, whatever they want brought over here. uh, everything from chopsticks to nunchucks, and they bring it over in mass by the millions every week to the wholesale market, and people go there and buy it all up, and they send all that boatload of money back to China to get more products. And these people, are patronizing their own people in back home, making China rich. At the same time, it now, there's a trick. Well, not now, but for some time, it's been a trade deficit between Asia, China and the U.S. That's why Trump's, so much attacking China so much and trying to go at them because they sell us way more than we sell to them. And so, why can't Africa adopt some policies like that where,
Absolutely.
we are able to, force them into a trade deficit where we are selling more products than they are right now. We're giving away diamonds and gold and all the most valuable resources on the planet for $1 in a song. And wonder why we're not strong enough to fight back. But somebody has to resist that encroachment and pressure by these Europeans and Asian countries because
Yeah,
China is
these
making a strong
cockroaches.
foothold right now. But all these things definitely important to commerce and industry. Don't let another people come over and take over your land. And I know China has 1.5 billion people to feed, but that's their problem, not ours. And
Mm,
we don't need to be allowing hundreds of thousands of Chinese to come repatriate to Africa every year. And Africans abroad don't even repatriate, but a few thousand maybe in a year.
mm.
But they coming over in mass like roaches to occupy and take over somebody's land. And it's a it's a, you can endure but so much of that before you lose complete control of everything. That's why the African Union headquarters had to get built by the Asians. We couldn't even build our own headquarters.
Mm.
We built pyramids to stand the test of time, but we can't build our own headquarters for African Union. It's got to get some other.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's
You
really
know,
embarrassing, and it, like you said, their 1 point whatever billion that they've got to feed is their problem. They're not thinking about ours. They're only thinking about business and how to line their pockets so that their people can continue to grow while ours perish slowly, slowly, slowly. But we can't let that happen. Brother Minister put, nature will help us if we've got to purge. And I always say and believe, and looking at history, that every nation has its time. So everything from that. So, in some ways, I'm like, okay, come, let them build up everywhere because eventually they will probably find a way. Something's going to happen and they're going to have to run away from us and leave us alone. Because if you look at history, we've always stood the test of time. You can't kill us as black people. You cannot. We are too strong and mighty for that. So, at some point we will, when we wake out of our slumber, I feel sorry for every other nature. Not nature, every other I've forgotten the word that I wanted to use now, what I mean, nation, sorry. Every other nation, because we are mighty and there's too many of us to keep us down. But right now, those people are so engulfed in greed and doing for their own self that it will blind them and they are going to make a mistake that's going to wake us up and we're going to start to fight back. And that might not be in our time, and that's okay as long as it happens at some point, and I reckon it will. Absolutely. Going to welcome Sister Kush to the conversation. Greetings, sis. Race first. Thanks for coming.
Greetings, sis. Race first. Great conversation, by the way.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
yeah, great Garvey Day to you.
Great
You got
Garvey Day.
you got any
Uh,
points to make?
yes, I do actually. Really good conversation. Um, and I was thinking actually as you both were conversating, and something that did just strike up because I've kind of been thinking about it as well is what was mentioned in regards to World War II, and what subsequently happened with the certain African nations who utilised them being busy. I know that you were talking around this area, so you might be repeating yourself. Sorry, 'cause it takes 5 minutes to come in, so you kind of get blanked out if you've already talked about this
Do your
point.
thing, sis. Keep going. It's okay.
Yeah. So I was just thinking that what is happening now, I feel like is very much identical. So yes, we've got everything that's happening with Trump, and although that's happening in America, what America does, I feel the rest of the world listens, and then it trickles. So even in regards to certain laws that have been passed or have been shut down, I think it was like the diversity laws. Forgive me, I don't know that the actual name of it, but I've even seen in UK news where there's talking about the same kind of notions and bringing it over here. So we know that there is a world order that's currently happening, um, and they're all trying to do it in a certain Western powers. And I just kind of thought, with that going on, and us seeing what happened in regards to Twitter, for example, so how they um, could shut down something, communication or an app that was posed, quote unquote, a threat, and then just decide to bring it back up, and how two separate entities who are big powerhouses. So you've got the owner of Facebook, and you've got um, owner of Facebook talking about how he apologizes, how he wants to be just like Twitter. And so, as you were saying, right now they are occupied, they've got a big plan happening. And it's definitely going to affect us if we are of the mindset of that we are the people, kumbaya, and, everything will be okay if we just adopt their rules and stuff like that. But in regards to the thinking that we have on here, and in regards to what's happening in the Sahel, right? To contrast that with those nations seeming to be independent and doing great strides in regards to the 2 years that, for example, Troy has been in leadership. What should we be doing as a people to be thinking as those certain African nations were thinking when they saw the powers that be preoccupied as they are now? And the connection, as we heard our leader talk about how he was having these ideas in regards to Africa. We should be having more conversation, especially in regards to the Sahel, because they're seeming like they're of like mind, and they are bringing out, you know, innovations and moving like strides and leaps ahead, even of quote unquote developed nations in the space of 2 years that we can't even do here. The governments here can't even do what they're doing for their own people. So I know that's quite loaded, but it was just because we've been talking about that. I've been hearing you talking around that, you both, and I think that we are in a situation now where this is the crunch time. I do think that we're seeing what happens when, even if you say, okay, do your own app. If you do your own app and you are registered in these countries and you pose a threat, we've seen what that can happen. We've seen what manipulation can happen with a quote unquote independent type of monopoly, where he's now doing a back turn and wanting to be like your competitor, which is not necessarily business, right? So we know there's something internally going on there. Um, so I think now is the time for us to be talking like that, to be talking about planning things and actioning things and thinking outside of the box, because they're clearly preoccupied right now, but whatever they're preoccupied with will hit us the hardest if we're not organized or planning for that, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely does. Yeah. Sorry, continue.
yeah, definitely. 100% behind that. And it was kind of reminding me as you were talking of one of my elders in the Garvey movement, Dr. Amos Nelson Wilson. He was one of the um, great psychologists of the nationalist movement in the 80s and 90s, etc. And he wrote a book once called African Centered Consciousness versus the New World Order, a subtitle, Garveyism in the Age of Globalism. And he was talking about the mindset and mentality we needed in order to not only overcome but to thrive in this new age. And many of those principles we've been talking about today are the tools that we're going to need in order to, um, come together and make that change. A lot as you were talking about the Sahel states. Mr. Garvey always told us to connect with leaders in our community, and by leaders, he means yes, the mayor, yes, the police department, and the city council, and all that kind of stuff, but also the ambassadors. Also the business people, also others in the community, so that they know us and we know them. And once we have some kind of relationship. If we need to get things done, we know who to go to, and they know where we're coming from, and we can, bring bridge some of the gaps between us. But a lot of times, us being our best solution to our each other's problems, but not knowing each other, not having connected with each other, we feel estranged from one another, allows us to be manipulated by others who are far more organized and collaborating together on all matters to keep power away from us. So us connecting with those of like minds, as you mentioned, it was it's definitely a solution to many of our problems. But I was thinking as Sister Nyasha mentioned earlier, I just wanted to read something that Mr. Garvey once said that resonated with me, um, in line with what you said, because I remember when floods happened in New Orleans some years ago, the people in New Orleans during the Hurricane Katrina had a saying that when the floods came, they saw the fish eating ants, but when the floods receded, the ants ate the fish. And so, the world kind of rotates and goes in cycles sometimes. And Mr. Garvey pointing that out one time also mentioned, I'll read it real quick. The world holds records of great events in history of the rise, growth, fall, and decline of races, of peoples, of nations, and empires. Going down the line, every group has had its day. England had her day of nation building, empire building, and scientific political protection, so that there is absolutely no argument, no reason to be found, and to be induced why even at this late hour you group cannot find it justifiable to indulge in the same escapade with the same intention of nationalistic development. There's no argument against your effort because all history supports you in the idea that it is right. And you yourselves indulge to such an extent that one period of the world's history you sat on the topmost rung of the political ladder. You are the torchbearers, the advance guard of all that was worthwhile in the world. Evolutionarily, you lost your place and you reverted back to the state of inertia, inactivity, the state of laxity, a state of almost savagery and barbarism and cannibalism, out of which, through the same laws of evolution, you are gradually emerging, proving that life is one great circle of events. No group has ever permanently held the world. Um, so anyway, he goes on to kind of carry on that point, but yeah, the world definitely moves in cycles, and you can't stay on top, forever. That circle keeps turning. As long as we in the Garvey movement keep the fires burning and the whirlwind turning, we eventually, through our works and deeds, are going to rise and be on top and lead the world into a new age. And we'll succeed and accomplish everything. We will, again, just as our founder demonstrated, it can be done in the worst of times. We certainly can take advantage, like you all mentioned, of the technology to bring the world closer together, tighter and stronger, and back to back, shoulder to shoulder. We can take on this beast on all fronts that we learn to, work together and trust and build together. So, I think we're on the right track. Confident we're on the right track. So we got another guest pop onto the screen.
You might as well call him a guest for real, because he come like he's a guest today.
No, yeah, I am. I'm enjoying the build. I've been here for a while. I was just in the chat, in the comment section, but it was a good build. I didn't want to disturb you lot's your wisdoms today, so I was just in the cut, just listening to the positive vibrations. You know, um, everybody mentioned some great points today. This chapter as well. I think that Garvey was preparing us for the wicked world that we are about to enter in, and it's a cutthroat world in the business department and in most departments. So I think that this chapter, he was really, trying to teach us how to think when we're going into business, so we don't make foolish foolish decisions. And I love the way Sister Kush is always talking about Ibrahim Toure. It's very important that we follow what's going on in Africa. We need to be trying to make some links with progressive Black people in Africa, not those that are going to be looking for what we can bring to them, but those that are looking for nation building and things that we can all build together. We should be looking into ways that we can do that, because like myself, I'm very impressed with brother Toure, and I've been watching him for a while. And at first I was skeptical, but from what I've seen by him, he's definitely read about Garvey. And if he hasn't read Garvey, he's read Malcolm X, when Malcolm X was on his Garvey. Malcolm X was on his Garveyism. In fact, yeah, I see someone mentioning in the chat about are we doing anything for Malcolm? I think that we should do something online. I think I might prepare a PowerPoint for brother Malcolm this February. I think it's the 21st. I don't know. I may call it the link between Malcolm and Garvey, or Malcolm X the Garvey Act. And show people how once Malcolm left the nation, he returned back to Garveyism, and he was saying a lot of things that Marcus Garvey was saying. You could hear, Malcolm X saying the exact same thing. I don't know. Some people say that they were just on the same frequency. That could be true, but I also do believe that Malcolm was studying or restudying, his father's organization, and he wanted to create something similar to that, or encourage the brothers in Africa anyway to link with the brothers and sisters in the West and figure out ways in which we can do business, figure out ways that we can become nation builders and build up this nation, because ultimately power comes from nations. So the reason why we don't have no power is because we haven't established a nation for ourselves. Garvey was trying to establish this in the 1920s, and the government of United Snakes, they had to shut him down, because they realized if they left this brother alone, our problems would be solved. And that goes into my next point about the book that the President General suggested today, about the African Center Consciousness versus the New World Order, Garveyism in the age of globalism. When you read that book, he kind of breaks down the questions that we're all asking. How can we build today? It's hard, it's a struggle, but we need to get the results. But how do we do it? He makes some great points in that book. And he's, one of the point is, he says that we as certain organizations, we only link up once a month, and we expect to solve 12 months problems in 12 meetings. It's not going to happen. He said that we need to be training ourselves every single day. This is why we encourage the study group, why we encourage our brothers and sisters in the organization to read one book a month, or one book a week for those that read quickly, or 2 books a month. Because ultimately, when you read these books, you're going to be able to get new information that you're going to be able to use in your life, that's going to benefit your family, and it's also going to benefit the nation. So, but yeah, I know I've been going on, but those are the kind of things that, resonated with me as the conversation, has been progressing. It was excellent reading from Sister Nasha. Give thanks for that. I don't know what else to say to you on that. I open the floor.
I'd like to say something on what you said there.
Yeah, go ahead, sister.
Especially in regards to what's happening now, because we're talking about against like the West being preoccupied and have this similar situation what we're facing. And thank you for that suggestion for that book. I was thinking about looking into that book, so I'll definitely look into reading that, because as you said, it answers a lot of questions, and I think it is a prominent time right now. When you're talking about nation as well, right now we're currently seeing a war that's been going on over a group of people who understands the necessity for a group of people to have a land or a nation. We're literally seeing it. We're seeing what they're going through, and what they're doing, and what they're justifying the genocide and all sorts that they're doing, right? So again, like, you really got honed down to like our people as well. Like, I want that to like knock onto our people, that it is important that the Caribbean and the African are sovereign, and that they do well, because as what our leader said, we need to start establishing links, and having links with people like the Sahel nations would just be elite. It's just naturally the best steps to be with a nation that has not asked anyone for anything, And Nigeria was technically the poorest country in Africa at one point, to where they're predicted to be one of the wealthiest because they've taken back ownership of their resources. One country. So I feel like we need to see that as a people, how necessity that is to, and watch that, because as what Sister Naisha says, it's true. Like, it is hard sometimes. You've got your everyday stuff. The world, you're looking at the world. As I said, they are preoccupied, and even though we don't know what's going on, we're not in those rooms. We know that it's trouble brooding, right? So it can be, but that's why I say that at this time we're in a poignant time in history, like history that will tell our kids if they're not old enough to remember it, and our grandkids when they'll ask about it. If the Sahel do what they are looking like they, and I hope they do, and I have every faith that they will do it, and they're not asking for no help from no one. They're doing it for self. They've not asked help for no one. If they are establishing connections or collaborating with other countries to get what is done, it's a collaboration. It's not charity. So again, like when you say that about nation, like what does a nation look like? For me, sometimes, I look to the West, especially in the Britain. I know our numbers are not the best. And out of those numbers, with our mentality, it don't look the best either. So to think about a nation in the sense as what the brothers have just said here, but again, especially how Malcolm X still talked about the continent and the connection there. Marcus Garvey is talking about the connection and continent there. Right now, we're seeing something happening in the continent there. We need to keep that alive as well. From what we are from the UNIA, we need to make sure that we reiterate that, because nation building is currently happening. It might not look like what we're used to. It might just be a bit of us from here, a bit of us from there, and linking in the main spot over there. Because as you've all said, it's a new world. It's definitely a new world order coming into it, and how we determine that and how we react on that is down to us. How we see what a nation looks like in this new age is down to us, and as long as it's beneficial for us, it can look anything how we want it to look. I think sometimes, well, for me anyway, it gets overwhelming when you're like, how am I supposed to put this puzzle in this shape into this puzzle? Because everything is shifting, everything is changing. So it's hard. But if you remember that our core values, what we stand on, our ethics, our ethos, it's not, it's fluid. It can move to any shape. As long as we hold on to those principles, it can hold on to any shape, and it can still be strong in a way that we want to format it in. If that makes any sense. I'm sorry, I don't want to talk on, but I just think it's important to understand what nation building means right now, in this time right now. It's so important. And I hope more people are following the Sahel. Like, these are real life superheroes. We're talking about a man who's doing parliament, doing stuff for his people, and then going out and literally battling wars, like, and then going back. We don't need to look for any Hollywood or anything right now. This is real life happening. From us, we have the same father. These are our people. So, that should give us encouragement, and it should also stress the need to, yes, and definitely to read, and also to pay attention to what's happening on the continent as well. So I just wanted to say that, Brother Minister, because, it's important, I think, that we reiterate that as well, as people, as students from the UNIA.
Good points, sister. Good points. We definitely need to be able to touch base and keep our eyes on the ground, and our ears to the ground, because otherwise we lose sight. And for me, I don't even necessarily think to do these enough. Like today, I was on a PMP meeting for part of Jamaica, and that's something I haven't tapped into that often. But it's all part and parcel of the circle. If we want to be able to support and help and do something and make a change, then we have to, in the West, look back to where we come from, to be able to help our people from where we are. And we have good resources that we can do that. They have better resources in a lot of ways, but we have other resources that we can tap into to be able to do things from abroad, and also make sure that we can try and get there as well, to see what it is for our own eyes, but also encourage us to keep doing the works as well, and also bridge the gap
Yes.
Between us and them, because right now it is an us and them, but we
Yeah.
are one, we are still one nation, and it's about rebuilding that back up
That's
any
good.
way that we can. And then once you do that, then you go back into doing things like what Marcus Garvey did when he had the Black Star Lines, and he had the avenues open with Liberia, and we were trying to get goods over there, and we were trying to build, although they couldn't see the vision was there, that we are connecting back to our roots and where we come from, although
Yeah.
we're all over the world, and that's fine. But from the fact that we were taken, the ones that were taken are trying to reconnect, we need to continue that work going forward. Otherwise, again, you might as well perish. It's
Exactly.
do the work or perish, because what do we leave otherwise? So yeah, it's important that we build ourselves up and get ourselves into a place that those people that don't belong there will run their way out. Yeah.
Facts.
Absolutely. That's why I always say I have absolute unmitigated faith in God. Darbyism or death.
Yes,
The
sir.
only solution. And yeah, I was just
Absolutely.
thinking, as I was, listening, to the sister speaking, um, I was thinking about, I mean, because, well, actually, both of y'all were speaking. I was thinking about, we often talk about what Mr. Garvey would have done today with the technology and the advancements in communication and information that is everywhere and easily accessible, and how it's bringing the information age, bring the world closer. But also think about what Mr. Garvey would have done today if the Sahel states were rising the way they were. You think about how he corresponded with just Liberia and Ethiopia, and he was corresponding with political activists in South Africa and Kenya and Sierra Leone, all over the place, all over the continent. But to actually have independent sovereign nations, throughout the continent that we can do trade and business with, and he's over here generating shipping lines and all that. Man, if we had connected at this stage, if we were able to generate again what we generated before and had, diplomatic status and ties with these nations, yeah, it'd be a whole new ball game. I mean, quick, in a lot of ways, so, it should just encourage us more to want to, get back, what we had. Because some of these nations have, like I remember specifically when I first went to UDC, one of the college I attended. I had talked. My professor was from Morocco, one of those Arab, Moroccan looking guys. But he was telling us a story about connecting with people because this was during the time of the Florida orange crisis. I think the cold weather came in and destroyed most of Florida oranges, and the Florida orange juice companies were going crazy, didn't know what to do. But my professor knew that he had a cousin in Morocco who had an orange orchard, or he was had acres and acres and acres of oranges and didn't know what to do with them. They normally would rot before you sell them all. And so he just happened to call over there and say, "Hey, how many ripe oranges you have ready? What quality and this, that, and the other." And then he called the Florida Orange Juice Company. I forgot which one, and they said, "Hey, y'all need some oranges? I can get you a ship of so many over, and blah blah blah." And he facilitated that quick deal, knowing nothing about commerce, trade, anything, farming, agriculture, agribusiness. He just knew some people over here and was willing to do the little groundwork to find out how to contact the Florida Orange Juice Company. So anyway, they did the deal. They both gave him like 15, 20,000 a piece for hooking the deal up, and wound up getting millions of oranges from the guy. But and so everybody made out like a fat brat. But sometimes simple things like that. If some of the Sahel nations need to sell some products, they got some peanut butter. I don't know, some food stuff. Something they want to sell. If we had the grocery stores, if we had the businesses over here in Europe and other places, we can say, yeah, send us a few containers worth of this, a few containers of that, and et cetera. They got Chinatowns, we got African towns all over. We got 50 million blacks here, 150, million in Brazil and Caribbean, several million. We got folks everywhere. So if they had that outpost and was getting that money, that would give them more power to get certain other things they need to defend and protect the country from other folks. So it's all about us connecting together. You always wanted to have a big reception. Back when Mugabe was president, I was kind of working out with a friend of mine. I don't know if y'all know Obi Igbuna. But anyway, a friend of mine who was pretty close with the government was trying to facilitate the opportunity just to have a diplomatic reception in Harlem. Because every year, most of the world leaders come to the United Nations in New York, and they're not allowed to go but so far out of the region if they're not necessarily in good keeping with or good standing. But they can't go back and forth from their embassies in D.C. to New York, etc. So anyway, if they were so many miles from New York at a nice church in Harlem or wherever we would have to go, and we actually brought the people to them who are interested in finding out more and who can possibly engage in trade and commerce with the Sahel states, as well as those who may have certain technical skills that they can lend to the country if needed, or other things, and find out maybe how to get dual citizenship or whatever. But to have that conversation and to show that there are people who are in support morally, if nothing else, in different nations around the globe, wherever he goes. Ibrahim, Traore and others go to know that, yeah, the people of African descent all over the world are backing us up. Then I think he would probably approach things with a little different perspective, knowing that, he got folks more places than he might think. But I don't think we've come out strong enough as an organized body to really embrace and support and find out what the country, may benefit from that we have to offer. And, hey, let's talk it, But yeah, I think we need to get better diplomatically and connected with some of these embassies where people are definitely practicing the rationalism of nationalism and, retaking their country from the colonial exploiters and masters who've been pimping them for years, and show, that we're, supporting them as well. But I know it's getting, we over the hour. I'm about to say it's getting close to that hour, but yes, we did.
We're over the hour. But I was thinking, President General, that idea I was just having about the Malcolm thing, I think we should do that together. I think with your mind knowledge together, we might be able to do a good power.
Oh yeah, definitely. Between us two, we'd kill it. I did talk to Paul Lee a few more times too, so never know. But
I hope so. Big up our Papa Paul Lee, wherever you are.
Yeah. He's the man for it.
Yes,
and
But I think we should do it from a UNIA perspective.
Oh yeah.
For the 21st.
Yeah, I mean, because he was born a Garvey, so why not? I mean, we want to celebrate his birthday. Celebrate what he was born into. It's definitely his roots, strong roots, and I got a lot of material for that. Since a whole lot of material. Paul got more, of course, but yeah, definitely. It's nothing to it but to do it.
Yeah, we will reason over on the WhatsApp about that, but I think that we should do that in February or May. Either one of them.
Oh yeah, if not both, yeah.
I'm more interested in celebrating the Death Day for some reason, and I always think for some reason that when someone is born, we don't know what the person's gonna be like, but when somebody is buried, we definitely know who we're burying.
Right. Yeah.
Because we know the work of the person, the character of the person, and all of these kind of things. So I always like to give reverence to the day that person ascends.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
But you're gonna leave the president?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well,
before you do that, was Sister you're gonna say something?
No, I was about to seal it off, but you leading, so that's fine.
No, you the leader today. I'm the follower, so
it's all good. We work together as a team. We're building a nation. It's all good.
Can I say something quickly?
Sure.
I think it was a great point. Our President General just said there about the embassies. I don't know if anyone caught that gem there, connecting with embassies and things like that. So I think, well, even for myself, I did, and I think that's a really good idea, and it's an option that is there for all of us to be able to take. So I definitely will be taking those actions to at least communicate with them and seeing, because that, like you said, diplomatic, and the first step is just trying to have communication. I think as well, the fact that they're a French speaking country is another could be another what's the word that I'm looking for, sis Naisha? Like another step that could be another problem, because it's another communication. But as
Connection,
what
yeah.
yeah, but I
Bridge.
just yeah, exactly. But I just think that in regards to, as we're talking about nation building and starting to build a pattern of learning how to do that, because I think that is something that we've lost, like to commune, to get together, and to be able
Mm.
to organize and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that that was a really good gem, a gem that I didn't think about. And I just want to say, when what got mentioned in regards to just exporting and importing, for example, I think one of the countries that taken ownership of tomatoes, right? So even that, like speaking to an embassy, maybe making, I should be talking about out in-store business online. I'm just saying that there's connections that could be done. And if there was happened to be a place where you could get tomatoes from just a hill, wouldn't that be the sweetest tomatoes you've ever tasted? Like, to know that it's definitely fresh, there is
And
no
it comes from
GM
us.
food in there.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's been done by independent hands, independent free African. I bet that would be the sweetest tasted tomato. And who else would probably want to be able to say to purchase that? Because ultimately will then be obviously spreading the dollars, right? The pound or the dollars. So it will be, instead of passing once between our community, can you imagine how much times it would be passing if they're now shipping it straight to us over here? We're now supplying it to other Black-owned vendors. Black people are purchasing it. Will then be doing so much things within that one kind of commitment of business. The amount of Black ownership, Black community, Black pride that will spark would just be, okay, we've got the tomato field sorted. What we're going to do for fruits? What we're going to do for commerce? What we're going to do for boats? What we're going to, do you know what I mean? Like, so I do think that there's something there. Like, I can talk about this forever and I don't want to go on, but I'm just saying
Yeah,
that there
you
was
know,
some very
you know,
key gems that got dropped in here that, is important. Go on,
I was
sis.
gonna say, no, no, you mentioned the word pride, and that's what I was gonna say. It'd be a prideful moment. You're eating your tomato with pride
Exactly.
when it
Yeah,
comes
you
from
would.
it was harvested by us and it's us. But you know what, sis, I want to just say that I definitely would love to work with you on that. So if you're
Yeah.
happy to have another set of hands to work with that, I'd very much be interested in working with you on that.
Oh, that's
So
brilliant,
we need to
sis.
talk anyway. So
Yeah.
we'll do that offline.
Yeah.
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 Well,
Yeah.
give thanks for everybody's wisdom this evening. The conversation was very much interesting. I don't even think it'd be something I have anything to say on, but understanding it when you're reading it, you understand as well. It gives you a level of for knowledge and understanding. I give thanks for that. I give thanks for everybody's contributions on the chat and on the live. And over to President General if he wants to take us out. If there's anything else that anybody wants to add.
Okay.
Well done, sis. You did it was a really great show, and well done to everyone as well. It was really, really, like, I think it was very poignant, especially for me. The topics, the things that got mentioned, the gems. Sometimes when you go through rough weeks and stuff like that, this is why a conversation like this is so necessary. It could kind of balance you off, remind you. Do you know what I mean? So I just want to give that love and
I,
give
I
thanks.
appreciate love that, sis. Give thanks. Race first.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Garvey, hey, love is strong. Yeah, we definitely gonna close. It's been a great eventful week, and we like you say, the film is on Amazon. If anyone get access to seeing the film Mosiah, you're welcome to Amazon. I'm not sure what the fee is. Also, again, we had a lot of talking points and news starting to jump because of the last minute full unconditional pardon based upon the legal briefs of the law firm of Aiken and Gump that was signed by President Joe Biden. So this makes this month a particularly active month for Garveyites to go out in the community and continue the fight to win over public sentiment toward Mr. Garvey's philosophy, aims, vision, and program. So the block is hot. And with that, I close with a few thoughts that speak to the topic today, dealing with industry in particular. The words of Mr. Garvey said, Negroes, for God's sake, get together. We are rich enough if we come together to put over any program. We are strong enough to unitedly demand the respect of other peoples. We are numerous enough to protect ourselves. We have genius enough to discover, invent, and produce in science, mechanics, industry, commerce, and art. Let us get together and pool our power to demand the respect of the world. The future is before us and to our making, and I am now imploring you to come together and let us put over the mightiest program of any group in the world. He also said in closing that the Negro is a cultural tramp in the political gutter of the world. And when he evolves his own state, built upon a solid industrial foundation, he will be standing upon his own feet instead of walking dressed up in a borrowed civilization. Let us start practicing Garveyism in this age of globalism. Let us prefer the African centered thought over the New World Order and not submit, but begin to build and to grow and take full advantage of the opportunities we have now before things get real, real. With that, I'll close with the motto of the association: one God,
One God,
one aim,
one
One
aim,
aim,
one destiny.
one
one
destiny.
destiny. Give thanks, everyone.